Arsenal hijacking Eze is so Spursy, yet this deal may have a domino effect for Savinho and Rodrygo. Chelsea's latest transfer confuses everyone, and Mark Goldbridge to broadcast the Bundesliga? This is DMAC Daily. The quote goat Postecoglou said it best when describing the Spurs experience. Every time I think I see the light at the end of the tunnel, it turns out to be an oncoming train. In this instance, that oncoming train is none other than Arsenal, who have stolen their main man. This is the latest blow in what has been a relatively disappointing window for Spurs thus far. Now don't get me wrong, Mohamed Kudus, top signing, João Palhinha, solid addition on loan, Danso and Tel on permanent deals definitely improves their overall squad depth too, but it's the targets they've missed out on and the details of these failed pursuits that's the real source of Spurs' misery. Remember, back in July, a deal was struck for Nottingham Forest star playmaker Morgan Gibbs-White. Spurs triggered his 60 mil release clause. We even got a here we go from Fabrizio Romano. That's as close to a done deal as it gets in today's age. But in a shocking U-turn, Gibbs-White had a sudden change of heart following a lengthy conversation with Forest's owner, Mr. Marinakis, and signed a contract extension. That was a bitter pill to swallow for the Spurs fanbase. To make things worse, Maddison then did his ACL. Now they definitely needed a new playmaker ASAP, and they found one in Palace's crown jewel, HIJACK Eze. Spurs were in active talks with Palace and Eze for weeks. The player himself appeared keen. All that remained was nailing down the finances. Eze had a £60 million release clause that would expire on the 15th of August. Spurs could get him cheaper after that date. A deal was inevitable, until it wasn't. Granted, Eze would technically end up in North London, but in another cruel twist for Spurs fans, he's opted for Arsenal instead. It was reported yesterday that Havertz suffered a long-term injury, and in the space of 24 hours, Andrea Berta has pulled off the steal of the summer. This is the signing Arsenal fans have been crying out for. Yes, Gyökeres was the long-awaited striker target, but in midfield, Zubamende and Norgard were replacements for Jorginho and Partey. Mosquera was a replacement for Tomiyasu. Kepa arrived as a backup, and I've got no idea what to think of Madueke. But Eze, now that's a player that definitely enhances their forward line immediately. And to poach him away from Spurs, W for the Gunners, huge L for their rivals. But the implications of this transfer could indirectly affect both Manchester City and Real Madrid. Hear me out. As Spurs were previously chasing for Eze, they were simultaneously pursuing another Premier League attacker in Manchester City's Savinho. It's believed an initial bid was sent for around £42 million and was swiftly rejected, resulting in Spurs somewhat cooling their interest. But following the Eze disaster, it appears they're still seriously interested in the Brazilian. Now, City aren't actively looking to sell, hence why they've set their price at £67 million. I doubt Spurs would consider paying that full amount, but if a sizable bid for the 21-year-old is tabled, that money could be used to land Pep Guardiola's dream option in Rodrygo. Pep is reportedly a huge fan of the player, unlike Real Madrid's coach Xabi Alonso. Now, Alonso has reiterated his desire in keeping the Brazilian, but his actions say otherwise. Rodrygo barely featured in the Club World Cup and was an unused substitute in their opening La Liga game of the 25-26 season. He's now behind Diaz, Garcia, even new boy Mastantuono in the pecking order. For a player of Rodrygo's caliber, I don't think he'd want to remain a fourth choice option, especially leading into a World Cup year. It's believed his price tag is around the €100 million mark, which is huge money, but City famously paid 9 digits for Grealish. So yeah, if Spurs push for Savinho, I think City will follow suit for the Madrid outcast. Meanwhile, Julio Encisco of Brighton is the next player to be signed by BlueCo, meaning they'll have dropped over £250 million on Brighton players in the space of 3 years. But this deal is different in that Encisco doesn't appear to have directly signed for Chelsea, but rather BlueCo, the consortium that owns both Chelsea and Strasbourg. At this stage, I can't find a single source that can verify the specifics of this deal. What is abundantly clear though is that Encisco's heading to Strasbourg this season and will move to Chelsea in the 26-27 campaign. But this is where it's puzzling because he's not joining Strasbourg on loan. Chelsea already have a max of 3 loan signings currently representing Strasbourg. They're not allowed to sign any more loanees via Chelsea. So you'd have to then assume this transfer is technically between Brighton and Strasbourg, with a future transfer from Strasbourg to Chelsea next season. The current rules of FIFA don't adequately prevent this from happening, even though it's very clearly a conflict of interest, similar to that of Savinho's transfer to City a few years back. Ironically, I spoke about this topic at length yesterday, the dodgy elements of BlueCo's multi-club model. They are using Strasbourg as a tool to diversify their assets, but the interests of Strasbourg aren't being prioritized, causing their ultras to protest that they are merely a pawn in Chelsea's long-term game. And finally, we gotta quickly talk about the insane Mark Goldbridge situation, as the Bundesliga has struck a landmark broadcasting deal with BBC, Amazon, Sky Sports alongside YouTube channels The Overlap and That's Football, which is hosted by Mark Goldbridge. He's set to become the first ever content creator to be awarded live broadcasting rights to a European league for 20 Friday evening Bundesliga matches this season. Now, the 46-year-old is a polarizing figure. Some people love him, others despise him, but there's no doubt about it, he's a highly influential figure with a huge global reach. The Bundesliga ultimately see him as someone who can bring further attention and eyeballs to their league. As to my perspective on this situation, I think it's a game changer for aspiring football creatives. It opens the doors to future collaborations, broadcasting deals. The possibilities are endless, really. 20 reps of the A-League, give me a call. Anyways, that's all for today's